Hey everybody, Seth here with Arc and Chip Fabrication. And last night we got a new addition to the shop. I picked up this little old Craftsman metal lathe about 7 o'clock last night. Don't really know a whole lot about it, but the price was right and I needed it for a small little job. I've been looking at getting a larger lathe at some point, but last minute part came up, customer needed for sheet metal shop, and as always, parts are always needed the day before. So we picked this up last night, so we're going to do a little bit of cleanup on it, get everything in working order so I can knock out one little part, and we'll go from there. Let's take a look. So here it is. This thing's definitely been sitting in storage for quite a while. It's been retrofitted a little bit. The tool post holder, most likely this would have been a lantern type tool post holder, is gone. The bottom nut that fits in the compound is still there, but they put a piece of angle iron on there. It looks like they set this up to be turning wood at some point. So that's going to have to come off. Again, don't really know a whole lot about it. I got to do a little research on it. It is Craftsman. It has a Craftsman tag right there. It does have what appears to be the original setup with the pulleys and the belts, tailstock. It did come with some tooling, so it came with a 3-jaw chuck mounted on it. This is a, I believe this is a Dunlap. Where is it? Somewhere around here. Can't quite make that out yet. The 3-jaw, I'm not sure. The 4-jaw is definitely a Dunlap. That one says it right on the face here. Dunlap. Can't quite make out the numbers on it, but anyways, came with those. The tailstock is a number 2 Morse taper. Had a chuck in there. It's pretty rusted and seized up in there, so we're going to do a little cleanup work on that. And that did come with 2 tools that really won't be a whole lot of use until we get a tool post holder on here. One of them is a parting tool by the Billings and Spencer Co. And the other one is a 3/8 tool holder. And it is an Armstrong. So this is what we got to work with. So let's take a look at it. There's a few things we do need to do for sure. One of them is the power wire on this thing. Looks like it shouldn't have been used 50 years ago. It's definitely going to have to get replaced. So let's take a look at replacing this and we'll go from there. Here's the motor. It's a General Electric 1/3 horsepower. Standard line voltage 115, 1725 RPM. You can see, like we said, these wires have definitely seen better days. I wouldn't even dare plug this thing in. It'd probably light up like a Christmas tree. So let's get this cover off and see what we got to do to replace these wires. Alright, so they have spade connectors, so that won't be too bad to get working here. There is a number of connections. Looks like they're saying they got 5. Cover does not have any data on it, so we're going to go with the fact that it was hooked up for line voltage with a normal outlet, and we're just going to reconnect it that same way. There's a cord I recycled off an old air compressor. It's more than heavy enough for what this little 1/3 horsepower motor is going to need. So we're going to go with this. Got 2 female spade connectors that I just dropped. We got 2 female spade connectors on here, so we're going to crimp these on. One, 2. Okay, these came in the top, so the hot, this high one, neutral, as this low one. Alright, and let's take a look and see what this motor does. Alright, so we got power. Let's see if this lathe has any Frankenstein in it. Everything is loose and free, I did verify that. It all spins. So, if it does come on, we'll be hopefully one step closer to in business. And it works! Alright, good deal. So, that's good to know. Leave that unplugged for now. This might go on the wall as a souvenir. I mean, that's classic right there. A little rocker switch. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of this. Alright, so looking back at the front of this now, I don't believe I've ever actually seen one quite this style before. It does not have a lead screw. Not even one that you can turn by hand like a lot of the very small, primitive metal lathes do. This rather, you just simply slide the carriage into place, and there's 2 little strange looking nuts on the bottom with handles that you tighten up, and you lock this in place, and then all your feed that you have is in your cross slide and then in your compound. So thankfully this compound does swivel. It's got two nuts on either side. It will swivel, so you can do tapers, and it'll still be rather versatile. So that's good news for me. It should work well enough till we get something a little bit bigger in the shop. So this came, the 3-jaw was on it. That mounts up nice and snug. And yeah, so we're going to go through, do a little wipe down, get this somewhat cleaned up, get this goofy little angle off here, and see if we can get this lathe looking a little bit more presentable. Alright guys, so next point I'm going to try to get this tailstock apart and freed up and oiled a little bit. So you got one backer nut off, and the second backer nut loose. I've already pulled this off, oiled it up a little bit, set it back on there. Just for now. Here's the handle. It is cast iron, aluminum. In any case, so I used to have a knob on the wheel that has broken off at some point, so that'll be one project to get that pulled out and make a new one. So on the back of this shaft, a little Woodruff key to engage the hand wheel. And there's a spacer ring, and we have a spanner nut that holds this rod up in here. Let me go grab a spanner wrench and get that pulled off. So I've done this before in a pinch. It's not ideal, but it will typically work as long as these aren't hard up too bad. So you don't tighten it down to score the shaft, but you get it good and close. Hold the Allen wrenches in. And a lot of times this will be just enough that you can and it may not work this time around. Yep, that ain't gonna work. Alright, well, I need to wait and get an actual spanner wrench for that. Or I'll see if I can tap it loose. hate doing it this way because it usually bungs up. There we go. Now it's moving. Like I said, I really hate doing it that way because it just bungs up them holes. But now it's moving. Now I might be able to get it this way. Oh yeah, here she comes. Okay. Good deal. Alright, so with this nut off the back, holds this up, and this is how you take up the slot. There's the screw. That's good and loose, so that should come out of there without too much trouble. Clean that off. And this will allow me to drive a shaft up in here and knock out the tailstock. Let's get a piece of steel. And we're just going to drive this tailstock. And there we go. And there it is. That's it right there. Did have a little bit of a mishap here. The screw didn't come on enough. Oh, let's see if we can get this out now. Okay. Alright, so let me zoom in and show you what happened here. So this is what came out of there, and that little mishap is this screw goes in the front underneath here, and it engages in this keyway cut in the bottom. That keeps your tube from spinning as you're cranking on the wheel. Well, apparently it was a little too tight. This keyway is cut all the way through, but it bound up enough that it broke the tip off this screw that engages that. So we're going to have to get that out of there and probably look at making a new screw to go up in there before we can put it back together. So I'm going to clean this part up, get it freed up, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we've got the rest of this pulled apart. We've got the stop that goes in the top here. It's got this radius that matches the tube that slides up in there. So when this is up in the tailstock, this will drop down onto it. And this little wrench goes in there, engages with a nut, is what tightens down and holds it in place so it won't move. So that's good and free in there. We got the spanner nut off the shaft, got that cleaned up. So that's ready to go back in there. What I'm going to do is grease these threads where it goes into the tube. That should last a good long time. There we go. Thankfully this screw was nice and clean when it came out, so didn't require anything on there. The screw actually really shows almost no use. Looks like this unit was not used much at all, so that's good news for us. Thread that back in. Put a little bit of grease this. Oil these threads up a little bit, make it go under a little bit easier. Oh yeah, that's easier. Much better. Much better. I'm just going to give this a few little light taps. Set this nut back in place. A little more to go. And that's that. Pop that off. That moves free. Hold this in place. We put our woodruff key back in. This one's actually a little bit worn, so I may look at replacing that at some point. We need our spacer collar on there first. And then our woodruff key, hand wheel, and then our backlights. There's one. Snug. Two. That one a little snug. There we go. Hand wheels on. Feels good. good. Actually, I'll back those off just a smidge. There we go. That's much better. Good deal. All right. So next thing, we're going to have to look at making this little set screw again. So I think we're going to change gears. Let's take a look at getting this chuck freed up. So if we need to make a little part, and see about doing a little maiden voyage on this thing. There we go. Alright, that seems to be good. Alright, next thing, I'm going to go ahead and put another little point on this so we can get our tailstock back together. So I apologize, the battery had died, I didn't realize it, but we finished drilling this part all the way through, and so what we're going to do now is chuck up an M8 by 1 1/4, and we are going to power tap this hole. Now ideally I'd have a handle that I can crank on the tailstock that would kind of help feed it in. This one doesn't have a crank, but this thing's small enough. It's not going to be a huge deal to just kind of help feed it in there, and really this is just going to hold that tap so it's straight in line with the part, and it'll tap that well. To do this, I'm going to switch this back down to a low speed. For drilling the size bit we're using, high speed was fine, but for power tapping, definitely want to have a low speed so you can have a little bit better control on it. So oil up this tap. And let's get her fired up. Okay, I'm gonna back this off. This will be the easiest way, seeing as this lathe doesn't have reverse on it, at least not yet. I may look at doing that down the road, but in any case. Alright. Put that back in there. Alright, and so that part is tapped. Pull our part out. There's some nice fresh threads. So this half is done. Next half, we're going to flip this part around and drill it halfway through and tap this half for M10 by 1. So I'm going to see about getting exact measurement on this. This is, oh, a little over 2 1/4 inches. It's 2 inches, 274 thousandths. So I'm going to set this back in the chuck. I'm going to go find a bit we need for drilling M10 by 1, and we'll go from there. Alright, so what I did, the top of the tailstock spindle that sticks out, it's marked incrementally, so I set it to 1/2 inch, and I'm going to run this up until it just touches that part. I'm going to tighten down my tailstock onto the bed. That's good and tight. I'll back it off when I start the lathe, and then I'll know when I start a 1/2 inch I need to go in 1 1/8 inches, because this part is 2 1/4, so I'm going to split that in half. So 1 1/8 inches from 1/2 inch, and then we'll have it right where we want it. Turn this on. Quarter inch, half inch, three-quarters, our 1 inch, 1 1/16, 1 1/8. Alright, and so that's drilled and ready for the tap. I don't believe I have a M10 by 1. So I'm going to have to go get an M10 by 1. It is a rather fine thread, not terribly common, but once I get it, then I'll have it. So get this bit out of here. So now you've seen the basics of it, and we got one part one step closer to completion. I'll probably finish tapping this and send it off so they can get going on it off camera. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is my first video, so please give me some feedback. Thumbs up are appreciated. If you like it and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. I will be doing more and more as time permits. So we'll probably do another video getting this lathe the rest of the way cleaned up and in a little bit more acceptable condition. We will be looking at some point building a base for this thing too, because this little plywood bench is not quite enough to support the reciprocating mass and stability this thing needs. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. We'll see you on the next.